we've got three Ripper questions that we want to go through.
Yep.
The first one is from Jai, and he's asked us for thoughts on Noel Whittaker's path. So, Ben, back in episode 501, you and I got the great privilege of talking to Noel Whittaker
We did.
about his life story. It was something that we'd wanted to do for some time, and we're really grateful for the fact that he came on. And interestingly, his story has been one of the highest watched videos that we have on our YouTube channel as well, Ben. So we got this question from Jai that said this: thoughts on Noel knocking property as an investment when that's your whole philosophy, and in brackets, and our whole retirement plan.
Well, firstly, I want to acknowledge Noel as one of my heroes, right? I mean, I remember reading his first book when I was 16 years of age, and it put me into a mindset of understanding the power of compound and how you can sensibly invest. And then over time, that investment continues to keep growing and growing and growing. As I've always said, residential property is an asset class for me that does allow me to control the asset. So if I'm going to accelerate my wealth creation journey, I don't really like leveraging into the share market because it's volatility. So I like to leverage into a marketplace that has less of that volatility. But Noel's story is one of his own experiences, and he shares those. You know, we haven't had an extensive sort of understanding of Noel's full property journey, but he gave us some clues. He's done some developments, some subdivisions, some commercial, and not all of them have done well. So he's been stung and burnt on a couple of those experiences. And he also talks about his property that he had on the Gold Coast, his apartment that he had there in a high-rise apartment. And so ultimately he still made money of that. I still think he bought it for 500 and sold it for 750, but that's over a period of time. But the point he's made is that, you know, ultimately he's potentially had better successes in the share market. And as someone who talks about as a financial planner, they're predominantly trained on talking about investment assets as opposed to resi property. So I just think that there's a recency bias and certainly a bias in terms of his experiences that he's had. And loss aversion, remember, we experience loss 2 times greater than we experience a gain. So those sort of things conspire to Noel's mixed views when it comes to residential property.
Perhaps his view around debt reflected the period of time. And a lot of the time when he was going into his path, and to Ben's point before, we don't know specifically Noel's exact journey, but in terms of leverage, he may not have got into a lot of leverage to go into the superannuation path and the shares path that he took. So that's number one. Number two, he built a career around being in the financial services space, the financial advisor space, which largely had a lot of rules around whether or not you could advise clients about getting into direct residential property. So again, had regulations around choosing a certain pathway. So a personal preference overlaid with a professional preference, overlay with a time in life that Noel was born, all might have conspired to him going this path and saying this path doesn't work. Now, historically, we can tell you that residential real estate has done well. It's worked well in our own portfolios, but it's worked well in the clients that we deal and serve with as well. Noel has taken a pathway that has proved very successful for him, but it's not an exclusive pathway. It is a pathway that worked for him, for his risk profile, for his goals, and for his time in life.
So Noel's a champion for people. He's been an educator all his life. We love Noel. As I said, he's one of my great heroes. He started me off on my educational journey. But yeah, Noel has had mixed experience with residential property, and he shares those experiences, which is what you want.
So there you go, Jai. Hopefully that helps you with our thoughts on Noel Whittaker. It's very clear. We think he's a legend. We think he's chosen a different path to what we talk about. And like football teams who some years win and others don't, we feel like there's room for everyone to have a seat at the table with different philosophies and pathways to get their own North Star, which is important to